Welcome to IndiaPodcasts.
You know, there is an old saying, behind every cloud, there is a silver lining. Behind every adversity, there is an opportunity. Minimalism is what this teaches you. Your actual, real core needs are limited. Self-sufficiency is what it teaches you. Jitni chadar ho, utna hi pair phailaiye. You realize that a lot of things where you splurge, you could easily do well without. And a lot of things which you thought were necessities now turn out to be luxuries.
20 lakh crore package there. Was it too late and too less?
It is not little, it is not late. It is virtually nothing. This so-called mountain of 20 lakh crores may be like not even a molehill, not even a house of cards. We'll be lucky if it is net additional, substantive, direct fiscal support of 3 to 4 lakhs. I am personally, and my party has been a supporter of lockdown. And I repeat it. Lockdown, however, is not an end in itself. It is not a solution in itself. It's a postponement. It's a facilitation to prepare yourself. Today, after almost 2 months plus of lockdown, the worrying thing is 6% is our rate of growth of COVID cases.
How is it to do video conferencing when it comes to, arguing for a case?
Arguments are more orderly. They are completely sequential. Interruptions are remote and rare. It's spaced out. It's organized. It's clear. So I think this disciplining, something which judges could not do for 70 years, COVID has done for us. You have to, worst comes to worst, simply print money and put it in the hands. You will be able to handle inflation later on. You know that old saying of John Maynard Keynes. What is the whole nub of the problem? The nub of the problem is consumption, demand. But that's ultimately the best lesson and message for everyone. To be aware, to think. And if you try and absorb it genuinely, what people call internalize it, then I think it will be a valuable legacy. It's a very contradiction in terms, but the most valuable legacy of COVID.
Welcome to another episode of India Podcasts with me, Anku Goyal. Government has finally announced a financial package of 20 lakh crore to support almost every sector. Will this be enough to revive the sinking economy, especially during the corona crisis time? To discuss this, we have with us Dr. Abhishek Singhvi. Though he needs no introduction, but a 3-term sitting MP, Mr. Singhvi is one of the most visible faces of Congress on the national television. Former chairman of Parliamentary Standing Committee on Law and Justice, Dr. Singhvi is an author, columnist, and one of the youngest appointed Additional Solicitor General of India. Listen in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singhvi, for taking out time for our listeners today. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I would like to begin asking you a little obvious, but as the situation calls for, we are in a pandemic situation, we are in uncertainty. This is a situation which has taught us many things, and ironically, it has taught humanity a lot. What is your first understanding and learning from the situation we all are surviving together in?
You know, there is an old saying, behind every cloud, there is a silver lining. Behind every adversity, there is an opportunity. Not that anybody would wish a scourge like that on humanity, like COVID is. But the lessons of COVID are many. And a day may come when after COVID, you will say, where have all those positive lessons of COVID gone? Without COVID, should we not have imbibed and absorbed those lessons? Lesson number 1, and this is obviously a wish list, which is subjective. Yours will vary from mine, and mine will not be identical to a third person's. But obviously, my lesson number 1 would be self-sufficiency, connected closely with my lesson number 2, minimalism. You know, my daughter-in-law gave me a book saying the 30-item rule. Not that I've ever tried to implement it, but she was trying to reduce everything in terms of clothes, all told, including your underclothes, to 30 items. Now, that's an example only. Minimalism is what this teaches you. Your actual real core needs are limited. Self-sufficiency is what it teaches you. We are fortunate in that we have our domestics who have been with us. But there are people who have learned to do a lot of their house chores themselves. And I could well have been in that position had we not got a particular kind of bungalow with people living with us. Third lesson is that a lot of the symbolism of urban life, or for that matter, rural life, is empty, hollow. What matters is what gives you happiness within a limited sphere. The other things are more ostentation, more flamboyance than substance. The fourth thing is spread your legs, that old saying, jitni chadar ho, utna hi pair phailaiye. You know, you suddenly start feeling the insecurity howsoever well you are. You realize that a lot of things where you splurge, you could easily do well without. When you now realize that your incomings are limited ultimately by God and your outgoings have to be similarly limited, and a lot of things which you thought were necessities now turn out to be luxuries. Number 5, friendships, links. There's a difference between acquaintances and friends. In this city now, the fact that you can just call at any time 5 people on your 5 fingers of one hand, if you're lucky, 10 on both hands. That's a thing to be, as they said, count your richness in friends, Maitri, friendship, not in riches. So like this, I could go on. But, and the last, in the macros, these are all micro-personal. Macro sense, I think it teaches you sustainable development on Mother Earth more than all the lectures and seminars, more than all the environment classes you and I have attended. It teaches you that, and I have now become a strong believer in that, when you ravage Mother Earth, whether in terms of its earth, soil, air, which is common, but equally whether in terms of its animals, then there is somewhere, and this has nothing to do with vegetarianism, mind you, don't mix it up. It is to do with rapacious ravaging. The humankind has now, in some form or the other, learned to go after anything which moves and several things which don't move. Well, you have realized now their capacity, the ones that don't move and the ones that move, to hit back at you. And I think this awareness, not that, I believe, I'm a little cynical, I believe that we all come back to our good or bad old ways, mostly bad old ways, within weeks of normalcy, so-called returning. But
Exactly.
if we can partially learn this, partially remember this, well, I think we've learned the good side of COVID, if at all you can call it like that.
You answered it so beautifully. It is so nice to listen those words because you kind of holistically put it. But one question from your answer I have, that do you think the millennials are going to adopt it the way you explained it, understanding friends, understanding minimalistic idea? We are techno-savvy. We want to grow fast. We want to rage out for earning beyond weekend. We are very ambitious. Does it really fit in today's world?
I think to start with the first part of the question, it's a wrong equation you are drawing, where age is not an antithesis. This is not a lesson which will be imbibed by the older and will necessarily not be imbibed by what you call the millennials or the younger ones. It is age neutral. It depends on how much your antenna are alert and aware and above all sensitive. And certainly that is a factor which is age neutral. Let me tell you, you and I know enough aged and older people who love a rapacious life. And we also know a lot of the millennials who are introspective, sensitive. It depends on how much, exposure you can give to those feelings, but they are there. So don't mix it with the age equation, point 1. Point 2, I think just sitting back and thinking about these days will give this sense of awareness irrespective of age. And I frankly believe that, India's demography being what it is, whatever, I forget now, roughly 70% or 65% less than 35 years. Yeah. That itself gives you its own story. In a sense, it's good that this lesson is to be imbibed by them who are going to be around for the next 40, 50 years, not by people like us who are not going to be here after 20, 30 years. So therefore, it's in that sense, that is the target audience. And let me assure you, millennials are people who have a lot of virtues. They are, in fact, many of them, of course, categories of them, not all, who are more minimalist than the so-called other group, which may be conservative, who may have seen a different era, who believe in show and pomp. So I think, we need to be careful. It depends very much on the individual, very much on the individual.
So coming around the economics of the country, you've spoken vastly on the subject on various podium, much awaited package. I say it much awaited because we were waiting for what is going to be rolled out, 20 lakh crore package there. Do you think, one, was it too late and too less, or do we see it has come out in the right way and is much implementable at this point in time?
You see, you can discount the fact that I have a political connection. But, I'm not a typical politician. I try to be as objective and candid as possible. And I'm certainly not speaking like a politician when I say this. But I have to be frank. It is not little. It is not late. It is virtually nothing. And I would hate to say, but I have to say, it's virtually, in large sections, fooling the people. I'm very deeply and bitterly disappointed. And I tell you very simply, with less than half a minute or 1 minute, with reasons. First of all, you took 60 to 75 days, except for 1.7 lakh crores so-called announced, which has been admitted by the government to amount to less than half of that actually, because it already includes pre-budgeted items. So it comes to less than half of that amount. So that was 0.7% of GDP right in the beginning. After that, roughly 70 days, we have had announcements, rhetoric, adjectives, clapping, utensils, flypasts, rose petals. Not a single soul of India or elsewhere will grudge anything for the COVID warriors. But the point is, for 70 days, we had nothing concrete. Point number 3, when we did have something concrete, is it not ke khoda pahad nikla chuha? I mean, if you break up the 20 lakh crores till now, you are at the moment somewhere at 6 lakh crores out of the so-called 20, which is entirely loan-based. A simple point, simply put for your viewers, the fact that I make loans easier for you, is it ever considered a fiscal injection under any definition? It's like saying, look, madam, you are in difficulty. I'm making it easier for you to take a loan. A man in difficulty or a woman in difficulty is not going to thank you because you're going to not charge interest for 3 months. He says, I need money in my pocket. I don't need the facility to make a loan. 3 lakh crores directly to MSMEs only in the sense that it is easy to take that without collateral. No actual fiscal injection. Then, I mean, this is a little laughable. I consider it a mazak on the people, a very cruel joke. We will expedite your income tax refunds.
Yes.
I will do what I am anyway obliged to do and charge you for it or put it in your credit account that I've done a great favor to you. What is all this? I will give you an interest subvention. अरे भैया interest देने का capacity नहीं किसी के पास. Subvention से क्या करेगा वो आदमी? He doesn't have the capacity to take the loan. Do you know, after COVID, with the RBI reducing graphically its rates for money put with the RBI,
Reverse repo rate.
Balances are banks putting with the RBI because nobody wants, there's no demand. So the short point is supply side monetary or liquidity measures, as the first year economists will tell you, has no connection with demand side fiscal injections. Now, number 4, please do what you like, RBI, monetary policy, 3 lakh crore MSMEs, which is nothing, no injection. But at least tell me, 7,500 in your pocket as a migrant labor direct injection, which has been estimated to cost 1 lakh crores.
Yes.
Why can't you do that? Because even here, you are relying on a multiplier effect to reach the migrant. Just imagine if you as a migrant had 7,500 in your pocket. Look at the scenes you are seeing on the roads.
Sure.
People making makeshift carts, people making cycles, people dying on the road. Now, I don't for the life of me understand. So I am very, very sad. I sound bitter. I may be sounding negative. But according to me, this so-called mountain of 20 lakh crores may be like not even a molehill, not even a house of cards. We'll be lucky if it is net additional, substantive, direct fiscal support of 3 to 4 lakhs.
When you say direct fiscal support, you had given a ballpark number around how much percentage the fiscal deficit number to say so. Where should it be moving around? 6% has been some economist view.
Exactly. What I would have liked them to do, and every normal person will tell you this is not rocket science, is to have amended the FMRB Act in the first week, 70 days ago. Number 2, it hardly matters whether you jump the fiscal deficit from 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 to 5.5. Let me assume that I'm teaching you bad economics of 2% for 1 year or 2 years. Economics lessons are learnt in normalcy. The abnormal lessons of economics tell you that you must jumpstart it to 2% more. What's the problem? Number 3, you take other cases, other countries.
Sure.
Take any country. I mean, we are supposed to be 10%. I don't think we are going to be 3 to 4% of GDP by the time you analyze the mathematics. But on a 10% economy, take USA, take Japan. Every item is, they take the airlines, and the American economy has given a direct injection to airlines. Have you given it to Indian Airlines? Not India, I don't mean India. I said the airlines in India.
The industry.
Have you given it to the hospitality sector? You can give it in thousands. You can say, we'll give you a tax rollback, we'll give you a subsidy, we'll give you a waiver. Those are your details. I don't mind. But have you given sectoral focused ones? You are doing liquidity measures through banks to facilitate, to guarantee, to support. I've given you 2 examples which happened in USA. There are 10 examples I can give you. Do you know the dole, if I may use a crude word, which UK and US give to unemployed? I'm not saying you're a rich country. I'm not saying if USA gives you $600 a week, you give $600. That's not the point. The point is the model. If you like, give 200 rupees a week. I'm giving an example, but you're not doing it.
How feasible is that 200 rupees a week when you're saying? Because our population, our demographic, our response to the situation is much different. We have, as you pointed out, migrant workers taking to the road, not understanding there also the health issues connected to it. So do you think we can handle?
That's a bogey which has been set up for no reasons.
Okay.
I give one straight example. To benefit a large segment of migrant workers, a very large segment, at 7,500 rupees per person. It's a one-time injection, not recurring, which is itself not a great figure. But it's enough for a person between life and death. Is 1 lakh crores too much to expect? You are flying so many flights from abroad here to get your people from abroad. You can't give 7,500 and 1 lakh. That's 1 lakh crores out of it, 20 lakh crores well spent. Let me give another example. You are saying that if you do this, can you afford it? You're not going to give in a dole to 130 crore people. 130 billion people. You are giving to a segment. The unemployed, deserving segment in that will be less than, let us say, 20 crores, 15 crores. To them, you will be giving a small dole. Then you can make subcategories, not to everyone. To a genuinely unemployed by a direct benefit transfer. Let us say unemployed plus below the salary limit of X or below the poverty line of Y. These are all targeted. Your data and your systems can deliver. It's just you lack the will. So don't be that's why I'm saying increase the deficit by 2%. Print money. How much more crude and direct can I be? Please print money and give it to targeted sections. As a matter of fact, you must have a package even for the corporates. Just because you are a corporate, you are not a well-off corporate who doesn't need assistance. But I'm not even coming to that. I'm talking of individual segments, airlines, hospitality, small businesses. You had this loan basis now, not direct injection, etc., etc.
So they've given a push to Manrega, something we saw in UPA government being really initiated and pushed forward to. They have given some push there, but a concern has been raised in today's presser also by some journalists about if the migrant workers are sent home, their coming back will also be a question because the industries need people. We have various sectors which would need people back on work. So how do you really look through the entire situation normalizing, knowing we don't know how COVID containment will happen, but someday we have to see the lifting of lockdown?
Let me make 3 specific answers, and so that there is no confusion. I am personally, and my party has been a supporter of lockdown, and I repeat it. Lockdown is not the issue. Nobody is opposing lockdown. And by lockdown, I mean graded relaxation also. Lockdown, however, is not an end in itself. It is not a solution in itself. It's a postponement. It's a facilitation to prepare yourself. It's a regulatory controlling measure, and that is good, no problem. Point number 2. Today, after almost 2 months plus of lockdown, the worrying thing is that the rate of growth of the Indian curve is amongst the top 3 countries in the world. Did you know that? 6% is our rate of growth of COVID cases. 6% is in the top, among the major countries, the top 5. Number 3, we may have done well in absolute numbers, but today the curve, you see any curve, the worst countries, UK and US, I believe, are the worst countries in absolute numbers.
Yes.
Their curve is flat. The Indian curve, you may be the late starter. I'm not blaming anybody. But the late start means that you need to feed that in. Now your 4th point, which is the most important. In the light of these curves and these numbers, I personally believe that you're not supporting migrants by direct injection has had a very costly side effect which you have not noticed. If the state governments had been so arranged that they could give a direct injection of 7,500 to migrants, and no state government has the money to give it, let me tell you. Central had to give it. It had to be a central package, which you have not done today for 70 days. If you had given that money, plus state governments had chipped in with some amount of support, and they will never do it unless the center gives money, then migrants would not be under pressure to go back. Point number 6. The last figure published in the last 3 days is that the biggest explosion of cases is where migrants in large numbers have come back.
Yes.
So you would have protected, I'm not blaming the migrants at all. The poor fellow dying on the street has to get back home. But if we had some support, by way of direct means, the pressure of migration would have been less than halved or one-third. And that is where you would have married the medical problem along with the economic problem. By not doing it, you may have actually inadvertently led to an increase in COVID cases. Because today's figures say that wherever the migrants have gone back in large numbers has seen the maximum explosion. You have the figures.
So I think that is a concern that everybody should be dealing with more smartly. Diverting to the subject of judicial process, I think it's again a change in the entire mechanism. You are in the position to tell us truly how is it to do video conferencing when it comes to arguing for a case. It's a new model, it's a new experience in itself, but is it something which is workable and something which can be thought through to use going ahead so that the cost element is also contained in that and a lot of time is saved? So how are you looking at the entire judicial process?
I believe it can not only be done, it is being done, it should be done, and it should be done much, much, much more. Unfortunately, it is too little. I won't say too late. It is too little. We have to get our act together. I wrote an article almost 4 weeks ago, which is now dated in the Indian Express, saying, today judges should not have to be bothered or harassed by capacity constraints. Internet not working, not enough lines, not enough connectivity, not enough websites, blah, blah. Silly figures like 20 to 50 crores in one Supreme Court will solve the problem. Similar figures in high courts, and they can be duplicated in head district courts. So first and foremost, courts which are giving directions for thousands of crores on COVID cannot be begging for these small outlays. You have to have state-of-the-art technology. Today you are functioning at virtually 1/10 your capacity. Point number 2. I believe that there is no COVID abnormal followed by normal. It's a 3-phase classification. There is COVID, then there is semi-normal, and then there is normal. It is not that 17th of May you press a button on 19th of May and all of us will land up in courts, 5,000 people in Supreme Court and High Courts and 3,000 people. That's a silly way of thinking. Nobody will go and nobody should go. And nobody wants people to go. So in the semi-normal period, which I expect to last 2, 3, 4 months, you should arrange that even when you come to the normal, why is it not that at least 33% of all cases continue to be done virtually? Number 3, it's a pure excuse that lawyers are objecting, clients are objecting, facilities are not there. Today in 2020 of India, barring the remotest of rare corners of India, in some remote village, the kids are smarter than all of us. Everybody has technology. Phones and other forms are easily available. So, you have to overrule the silly objection of a very, very minuscule part. Nobody is objecting. Number 4, there is no reason why courts should be functioning as vacation courts as they are for the last 2 months. You need technology. Why can't you have 20 benches sitting? Why can't you have normal hearing by this Zoom and this, video conferencing? What is the problem? You see, we have been doing video conferencing cases every other day. Yes. It is a little awkward in the beginning, but actually I had written in the article that of the 35 judges in the Supreme Court, there are at least 7 or 8 benches, which will mean 15 or 17 judges who should sit and take up all the 10-year and older cases and finish them off. The balance can make 2 tracks, one on the urgent new filings and one on some old parters, etc. So this is the method. All 35 can be sitting. And they can
you don't find it difficult on the argument part. You find it physical presence and virtual presence is not creating.
It just takes a few days to get used to it. I think on the lighter side, it is a judge's delight at least, if not a lawyer's delight. And lawyers also adjust soon. Arguments are more orderly. They are completely sequential. Interruptions are remote and rare. It's spaced out. It's organized. It's clear. So I think this disciplining, something which judges could not do for 70 years, COVID has done for us. And
it's a very positive way to look at it. We need to
learn that this is something which must stay with us in the normal also. Why can't we have at least 33% in December also by virtual lawyering?
I think coming from you, this is certainly a kind of acceptance that yes, we should go for this for long term. On force measure, you've already spoken a lot again. The problem is on both the parties, how you define this force measure. It is a sophisticated term you would need your help to simplify it for us. But how do you understand when one party, the receiving party or the one who's implying force measure can justify it as an incident which is not normal, but the other party, which is also bound in the contract, also falls into the same situation. So how do you look at force measure application for any sector for that matter?
Let me tell you, to your long question, I can have a full 2-hour session because force majeure is a complicated subject in law. You certainly don't want me to do that. So the simple answer is some 3 or 4 general simple principles. Force majeure depends above all on the contract between you and me, what the language says. So between you and me, a contract may say earthquake, fire and flood. Between another person, it may say earthquake, fire and pandemic or epidemic. So it all depends on the clause that is uppermost. Second, where there are specific sectoral reliefs given by the government of India. So a notification issued for roads which had to be completed by X date, otherwise NHAI would levy a penalty. Because of force majeure, the notification of the government says we extend the date. The government says in particular kinds of wages, force majeure, you can have a 33% reduction. This is the second category of legislative or governmental changes, which are the best because they are clear, they are precise, they are specific, they are sectoral. Now, the force majeure you are asking me and talking as a lawyer is the third category, where it is decided on a case-to-case basis, where there is neither a contract nor a government notification covering you. There, I have spoken in my speeches earlier that force majeure is a very different concept than people romantically believe it to be during COVID. It is not an easy ground which you, Ms. Goyal, will take to excuse your obligation and get out of them, Mr. Singhvi. In common law, judges apply a very difficult test. The test is that Ms. Anku Goyal must A, prove that the supervening event, let's say pandemic in this case, so alters the identity of the contract as to virtually make a new contract between Goyal and Singhvi. Break in identity. It is not a temporary break. It is not a temporary aberration.
It's complete annulment or dismissal.
Alternative forms of compliance are not available. There is an interesting case in 1962 in the House of Lords where a chap said, look, I can supply, but I can't supply because the supply was everybody understood to be through the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal is now in war, it's closed. So this is clearly frustration. And you and I might think so. The House of Lords said, sorry, tough luck. You can go down the Cape of Good Hope of South Africa and supply to England. You do it that way. The fact that it is more onerous, more pricey, more difficult is not as romantically believed in common parlance in excusing even of force majeure. So that's the threefold level. One is contractual, one is by government notification, the third is common law.
Sir, coming from there, I would like to also ask you, since you have been handling a lot of ICA cases or to say stressed asset cases in NCLT, kind of moratorium period has been given to the resolution of stressed asset, at least the ones coming under the intercreditor agreement. Do you think it's good enough? Will it really result in resolution coming by or just a deferment as it happened?
The maximum government intervention by notifications, if I can call it the maximum, has been in the IBC area, insolvency. I think many of them are desirable and good. Limitation is suspended. In fact, there is a cabinet proposal which said that we may decide to suspend all three sections, 7, 8 and 10. In other words, the IBC will not apply for X to Y period, which is defined as the COVID period. So that if I want to take you to IBC, I just have to defer my action beyond that. That's probably, I think, desirable and simple. It's got the advantage of clarity. Plus, there are lots and lots of other directives by RBI which says you don't just jump into IBC, you do this and that and you do a filter. I think more important is the fact that our IBC courts need to be strengthened. I am told that the NCLAT even today is not able to have virtual hearings. That's a great pity if true. I have it on good ground to believe that that is so. To expect, after all, the needy and the important and the urgent cases need some resolution. And even the pending ones do. And not to be able to do virtual lawyering, it's a great deterrent. Plus, the manpower is very limited. And there are articles now published that in the West, that post-COVID, you can expect, apart from a baby boom, you can expect a big boom on IBC cases. And I don't think our bottom layer NCLT courts and NCLAT is equipped with manpower to deal with it. Yes. Last but not the least, I would commend for everyone the Singapore model, which has collected all the COVID measures into one statute. Singapore has passed one act that has got all these categories, IBC separate, Companies Act separate, transfer of property separate, contract separate. The virtue of this is clarity, specificity, certainty, minimizing of litigation, minimizing of multiplicity. Otherwise, what we have in India is a little ad hoc. So you are the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you issue notification today. Tomorrow the RBI issues another one. Third day, the Government of India, Minister of Finance issues a fourth one. They are overlapping. on the same subject.
Then they take it to the court also. So
the Singapore model, which I have studied, is a good act for us to replicate. There's no point just saying that Singapore is a single small country. Many areas we can replicate.
So going from there, as you had clearly mentioned about sectoral attendance given by the government, in particular, I would want to say that there's a kind of a sense developing some sectors, aviation, restaurant, hotel business, they might just wipe out from the space that we see them operating now, as no sectoral analysis concretely has been done. How are you looking going forward? Do we see some sectors really take up?
The word might in your formulation may be an understatement of the century. Actual airlines have stopped completely. They are virtually on the edge of bankruptcy. It's obvious. It's not what you think is the main cost. Salary is a big burden, no doubt. But the lease rentals on aircraft, which are standing, how much leeway can the lessor give you? They're enormous. Now, you can't return the aircraft because when you want to fly, you can't get them so easily because it's difficult to get it back. You can't keep it. And the maintenance itself is a huge expenditure. The third category is salaries. That is the point of sectoral fiscal injections, which other countries have done. It is a good use of your 20 lakh crore, which unfortunately I have said is only 3-4 lakh crores. It's a good use of even the 3-4 lakh crores. When you fall ill, Miss Goyal, you have a fluid. Then you have, if it's a little more serious, a strong tablet. When you really look serious, then you give a direct injection into your arm. That's the more serious degree. Now here, you need a fiscal injection. An airline specific. There are two levels. One is a sector neutral, which has a slower multiplier effect. But a direct injection, howsoever small, will have a better effect. We don't have it. Where is it? The airlines, hospitality, but so many more. Forget these are, you may call them richer. They're not richer. Millions of restaurants, millions of, the middle class people. Migrant is one category, but the middle class guys who are wage earners, there's huge layoffs. How long will you pay if you have a small office of 10 people? 1 month. How long will you support them beyond 2 or 3 months?
As the last question to you, largely, since you have spoken clearly, what do you mean by fiscal injection? You have said it is a direct injection in the system. We were already in economic slowdown phase. We have come and hit another major iceberg, to say so. So in a drowning situation like this, when you say we should go for a direct fiscal injection, what should be kept in mind for long-term revival out of the situation? We might take a year, we might take 2 years. The GDP growth number, some thought would come to 2 to 3%.
When you are sinking, that's the whole point and meaning of fiscal injection. When you are drowning and you don't have sufficient strength in yourself, you have to take the assistance of either someone else or some inanimate object. You have to, worst comes to worst, simply print money and put it in the hands. You will be able to handle inflation later on. That old saying of John Maynard Keynes. What is the whole nub of the problem? The nub of the problem is consumption, demand. You must be wanting to spend, and you can't want to spend till you have the right mood, and you can't have the right mood without some money in your hand. Now, Keynes made a very interesting, of course, it's oversimplification. He said in times of famine, which is the equivalent of pandemic, it's better to get people to dig holes and fill them up. Why did he say that? Not that at all I am suggesting something as unproductive as digging holes and filling them up. It's to put money in the hands of people who are doing it. This was said in 1933, Great Depression. Yes. I think this is a bigger depression than the Great Depression. And Keynes may not be right, but it's common sense. Now, the only two things you're scared of is you print money, 2% more FMRB, you will have inflation and you will have deficit. You are able to get out of the pandemic and square it up. It's like getting out of a hole and then becoming robust. But if you're so weak that you'll die inside the hole, it's no point saving your printing capacity till you are dead. It's better to come out of the hole, though in a weak condition. I agree we'll be very weak if we print money. But we can go from weakness to strength. You can't go from death to weakness.
I think survival should be the chosen path right now. Sir, your last message or appeal to people directly, be it to the warriors on the front foot. We're seeing people actually first time hold on to being in lockdown.
I think my last has to connect with the first. If you, everybody, and this is not being didactic or sermonizing, it's not pompous, I hate that. It's basically that whichever of us can imbibe whichever part of those 7-8 lessons, 4-5 in the personal sense, 3-4 in the macro sense. I may imbibe 33%, you may imbibe 50%, somebody may do 75%. But that's ultimately the best lesson and message for everyone. To be aware, to think, And if you try and absorb it genuinely, what people call internalize it, then I think it will be a valuable legacy. It's a very contradiction in terms, but the most valuable legacy of COVID. That's why they say every cloud has a silver lining. And I would love it if this valuable legacy at a personal level stays with me, at a macro level stays with the country. I'm not saying it will. I don't know it will, but certainly that's the object. That's the goal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singhvi, for giving us such an amazing and more beautifully defined way of looking at COVID and how to get out of it, economic point of view, from a jurisdiction point of view, and of course, holistically, as we should get internalized during this time. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure for us to have you here.
Thank you.
Will the fiscal package give a kickstart to the economy, or more boosters will be needed soon? The implementation will depend largely on the spread of COVID and simultaneously lifting the lockdown. That is all we have in the episode today. Keep listening, stay safe and stay healthy. You may listen to all episodes of India Podcasts now on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. You may also subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us as India Podcasts on Instagram.
Brought to you by India Podcasts in association with ICI Healthcare for Pure Care Sanitizers.